Hey, everybody. I know nobody's here yet. I'm getting TikTok set up. Big breaking story with real repercussions for politics in this country. So we're going to talk about this. Let me get TikTok set up. I'm just talking because I know eventually people go to the beginning of the video. Let me, like I said, get TikTok set up here. One second, guys. Shit. Trying to figure out how to write this on. TikTok has the smallest thing you can type, the smallest number of letters, like 32. And for a breaking story, it's hard to. All right. Anyway, still waiting. TikTok. You guys, at some point, you're going to be showing up TikTok or YouTube people. What have I got here? We'll turn off the viewer wishes. Yes. Can I turn them off? All right. Start. I didn't want it to start with my live. Seriously? Hold on. Trying to turn off the viewer wishes. It's not going to let me turn it off, is it? I don't think so. All right. Hey, guys. Still nobody on YouTube. All right. I know I'm starting early here. All right. Let's start this now. All right. Anyway, hey, guys. Sorry to not be talking yet, although nobody's here. But I want to get TikTok rolling as well because this is an important story. Hey, Emroy. 1 second. Big story going on here. So I'm going live on TikTok too. I'm not doing Discord right now because it's too much. But I'm going to do TikTok as well. And we are going to talk as best as possible here about a very, very big story here. Oh, boy. Wow. Crazy. There are 11 people. You guys aren't commenting on YouTube. Oh, maybe you're not regulars. Okay. I was going to say, I see 11 people on YouTube. Sorry, guys. I was getting TikTok set up. All right. TikTok is set up. Welcome, TikTokers. Kind of huge story. Yeah. Crazy story today. Wild news. Hey, Bet. Good to see you, Betty. Maga activist has just been shot in Utah. We have no information on his condition. Video online looks very bad. Huge breaking news. Huge breaking news because this really has repercussions for the entire country, really, which is why I was debating going live because it's obviously a polemical issue, so to speak, but I think it's an important issue nationwide to talk about. I would ask folks to be polite in the comments on TikTok especially. This is obviously a very serious issue. If you are rude, left or right, you're going to get banned. So don't do it, please. Right? This is kind of a serious topic. So don't be rude on either side of the discussion. Okay. Not that there's sides, but you don't need political sides of the discussion. So the news is MAGA activist Charlie Kirk, one of Donald Trump's biggest allies, enablers, defenders, I don't know what else to call him, was just shot at a speech in Utah. He was giving a political speech, whatever, at a university, I think in Utah, young people. And he was asked a question about transgender mass shooters, which you know is a topic now among some Republicans like Donald Trump, and was giving the answer to that question when he was shot. There is video online. I've not seen it, but I've seen still shots. There was video online, and frankly, there's witnesses. I mean, there was a witness on CNN talking about it. He was a journalist, I believe, actually on CNN that witnessed this, shot in the neck. She said there was a lot of blood immediately. Thank you, Ash. And that's what they know about him. Very bad news if you're shot in the neck, obviously, because there's a lot of important arteries and things there. Also, Anybody who knows that you've had head wounds, if you hit your head, for example, you cut your head, it bleeds a lot. I think it's because you're so close to the heart. I think that head wounds and things tend to bleed a lot anyway, which can be bad, but neck is very bad. No word on his condition. An older man was apprehended. I think they said, the witness said a man who is partly, or not partly, but in his 60s, was apprehended. They don't know anything else about him, his motives, or anything else. This was in Utah. He was at I believe he might have been at a university. He was in, I don't know if it says, during an event. The pictures I saw was a white structure. It almost looked like a university structure or something. But it was a man in the audience who opened fire. Kirk was discussing transgender mass shooters, kind of an awful topic, when he was shot. It was a university? Okay, thank you, Katz. Yeah, I thought it might be. It looked like it was a university from the images online. Utah Valley University, Utah Valley College. Okay, thank you, guys. According to the witness herself, the video shows him getting shot in the neck or the neck getting injured. The witness on CNN, from a journalist who witnessed it, who was on CNN, said as well that that she witnessed him getting shot in the neck, and there was a lot of blood. I mean, very bad, very bad. I don't know if I'm going to watch the video. I mean, I want to watch the video from a news perspective. At the same time, it reminds me of the Ukraine stuff. I don't like to watch videos of people getting injured. It's kind of, I'm certainly not putting it on TikTok, that's for sure, or YouTube, that's for sure. I wanted to talk about it from, I mean, it's a big story right now, obviously, but I wanted to talk about it from sort of not two perspectives, but two issues. One, well, a couple things. One, this was in Utah. This was in a Republican state, just because of the crime discussion Trump keeps having. We don't know who the shooter is yet. Keep in mind, the two guys, at least, who shot Trump were Republicans. So we don't know. We don't know what it certainly, your first guess would be politics, because he's a well-known political figure and it's a political speech, right? But we don't know. And as I said, two of the shooters that shot Trump were Republicans. So you don't know. And I think as a journalist and somebody who's been doing this stuff for decades, it's always important to, thank you, Pure. It's always important to be careful. I mean, any of you who care about the truth, those who don't, obviously jump to your conclusions. But if you care about the truth, you always want to be careful, because you don't always know. You don't always know, even though it certainly looks that way, right? It certainly looks that way. But and the mods, just exactly get rid of any of these people that are saying horrific things. It's a violation of TikTok's rules, and it's also a violation of standard human decency, frankly. There's a couple. There are a couple obvious dangers here to society at large, beyond just somebody who's a shooter. And this is something I went to graduate school at Georgetown and studied master's in foreign service at Georgetown, which is international relations, public policy. And we had a professor from Israel who was actually very interesting. Thank you, Nicola. Hey, who was very interesting. And he did a lot of courses about Middle East politics, which was very interesting. And one of the things that he always pointed out, which is interesting, again, because it's a lesson I've taken for politics and life in general, but he talked about in the Middle East and how at one point a culture of political assassination started to grab hold in the Middle East. It was around the time that, I want to say, the current king of Jordan, Abdullah, his grandfather, I believe, was assassinated, maybe 1960s, early 1970s, something like that. Then the father gets assassinated. Then you have Sadat get assassinated in Egypt. You had assassinations in Israel a little bit later. But political violence can lead to more violence. It can start to send the message that this is okay, and people can then start for example, obviously, if this were partisan, if it were somebody on the left who shot Charlie Kirk, it could inspire somebody on the right to respond. And you don't want that kind of, and again, there have been multiple mass shooters who have been favorable to people on the other side of the political aisle. You don't want Democrats to respond to that by shooting. You don't want people doing this kind of stuff, right? And that's one of the dangers, is that it gets normalized, that people think, oh, well, it's what you do when you have a grievance, right? That they wrongly think it's okay to do it. And B, that they seek revenge. That people say, well, if right, that people say that if you shot one of their guys, they're going to shoot one of your guys, which is, again, horrific, right? So that's one big danger of this kind of political violence that sadly we have in our country, is it can beget more political violence. That's one big problem. A second big problem is Donald Trump. When you're already in a climate where Trump is using the military in civilian situations, in situations that are scaring people in terms of authoritarian governance, you don't want political violence happening because it gives him an excuse to do even more, right? And this was one of the things I've talked about during my lives, was one of the concerns people had was that Trump would use violence surrounding the National Guard, right? How he's been using the National Guard, for example, in the Marines in American cities, that if there were violence against them, he would use it to do even worse things, right? He would use the violence to justify a military response or something, right? Very bad stuff. It's so this is dangerous. I mean, it's bad on just a simple murder or killing or attempted killing kind of particular, right? For starters. It's also bad because it potentially establishes these kind of horrific acts in the culture at large, that people think it's okay. And frankly, we already live in a country where there is a culture of guns and shooting that is bad. We have mass shooters all the time, right? All the time. And it's, so you've already got that. That's very bad. It's anyway, very bad. So yes, the breaking news is Charlie Kirk, who's a top MAGA activist, one of the top MAGA activists, one of Donald Trump's biggest enablers, was just shot while giving a speech in Utah. He, according to witnesses, there was a journalist on CNN that they were interviewing who witnessed it. According to video, he was shot in the neck. Very bad, very bad. I mean, very bad. So we don't know his condition yet, but very bad. The shooter was an older man, they say. I heard somebody say in his 60s, older because this was a college or a university, but in his 60s, he's in custody. We know nothing about this guy yet, but it's very, again, we don't want to guess his condition, but from the video and the witnesses, this is a very scary event to have. I mean, it's a very scary event to have happen anyway, but very dangerous medically to have this, to be shot in this way, put it that way. Any case, really scary stuff, really scary stuff. Keep in mind, as I said, both of the shooters that shot Donald Trump were Republicans. This can be Republican, it can be Democrat. Most of the mass shooters we actually have in the country tend to be extreme right. So anybody who tries to play politics with this should not. Thank you, Arifa, for the gift. And I'm not going to do the wishes for this. I tried to turn them off, but it didn't work. So I'm not doing the wishes for this broadcast because I think it would be creepy to do, we're not going to do funny little sounds and things when we're talking about something this serious. He got shot. There were witnesses, Bradley. He definitely got shot. Yeah. No, I mean, there's not just video. There are witnesses. There were 300 people in the audience. Journalists on CNN saw it. A woman I just saw interviewed. Thank you, Gene, for the gift. Really just bad stuff. Yeah. Wow. No updates on his condition. Yeah. Looking right now. I'm trying to see online if there's anything else. Again, the guess would, there's a couple things. One, are you sure, Agent? I don't want to necessarily repeat that unless we know. Let me see. And we don't know who shot him. Again, 2 Republicans shot Donald Trump. I mean, you just don't know. It's tempting to jump to conclusions, but those of us with more experience over the years know that you don't want to. Thank you for the gift there. Who was that? Thank you, Omar. Appreciate that. Let me just look here and see. Yeah, I'm not seeing, Sasha, stop. I'm not seeing, was shot from a campus building about 200 yards away. That's 600 feet away from the speaking area. There's also, oh, that's great. There's also at least 2 children have been injured after a shooting unfolded at a high school in Colorado. So there's also a mass shooting going on right now in Colorado at the same time, which actually somebody had pointed that out when I was talking, and I wasn't sure what you were referring to. Yeah, that's horrible. Absolutely horrible. Yeah, I'm not seeing any updates here. Not seeing any updates on, actually, I think I almost need to pull up the Deseret News, because Twitter is not necessarily the place to get most of your updates, because Elon especially set Twitter up in a way that you can't really get the news sequentially anymore. So you get things out of order, which is not helpful. Glenn Beck is posting an update. I don't know if I trust Glenn Beck, but maybe. New York. I'm trying to think of like who I trust. Actually, you know who I trust? I kind of want the Deseret News. They're the local Utah. Let me pull up Deseret. Deseret News. There's a good chance they've got a running. Let's see if they do, though. Do they have a running? Click here for updates. Okay, here we go. Charlie Kirk was shot in an event at Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah. Deseret News reporters on the scene report seeing Kirk shot during a Q&A. About 2 minutes into the interview, a gunshot rang out and Kirk appeared to be hit in the neck. Initially, it was believed that a shooter was in custody, but Deseret News was told by officials the status of the shooter is unclear. The campus has been evacuated. At least 60 first responders were blocking the campus entrance Wednesday afternoon. Okay, that is not a live update. Okay, well, that doesn't help. Anybody know like who's got good live updates online that we can trust here? I'm trying to find. I would think possibly Associated Press, maybe KSL. I don't know who that is. Is that something in the area or what? Let me see. Come on. Trying to pull. Nope. KSL just has like a news story on it. Yeah, they just have the news story. I'm going to go for a larger news network. The problem is like Newsweek has it, but Newsweek isn't really trustworthy. Hang on here. Live up, yeah, Newsweek I would not trust for live updates. I'm sorry, but that's not good. ABC4 Utah, maybe. That has possibilities. Condition is currently unknown. A single shot rang out in the quad. We can confirm he's shot. We do not know the condition. Closely monitoring. No. There's no update at all about anything here. Yeah. Yeah, there's no update. Yeah. Anyway, scary story. How long have we been live? I don't know. Does it say 15, 20 minutes probably? Looking here, guys, just to see. I don't think we're going to find. The problem is I don't think there are updates. Hold on. I'm trying to get off. Now I'm stuck on some news page that has advertisements that, of course it did. Yeah, the local Utah news page crashed my iPad. That's great. Thank you, local Utah news page, for crashing my iPad. With that's the sign of a poor design. So I'm going to have to reboot my iPad in a second here, I think. All right, stop. Oh my God, stop. There we go. All right. Jeez. Try again, Charlie Kirk. Yeah, I think honestly, Twitter, AP reports he's in critical condition. Okay. A couple of you are saying that I'm trying to not trust necessarily what people are saying here, obviously, but something like that is pretty benign. I'm not going to repeat other stuff that we don't know. CNN, maybe. Yep. A number of people saying AP is saying he was in critical condition, which would not be surprising, considering the type of shooting. The video, from what people are saying who have seen the video seems to suggest that this is very bad, which would not be surprising for a neck injury. Charlie Kirk traveled with private security, and university and local police were assisting, was speaking to a large rally. The aide said university police and local authorities were also providing security at the rally that drew a crowd of thousands. Oh, several thousand in the crowd. Wow. I'm trying to see here. Actually, my iPad, I'm going to have to plug in my iPad, I think. Yeah, I'm going to have to plug in my iPad. I wonder if I can plug it. Oh, I can plug it in here. I forgot about that. I'm forgetting that I've got an extra plug that I can use for my iPad. There we go. Suspect is reportedly in custody. There was then a news report I saw from Deseret News, which is a big Utah news outlet. They've been around for decades. They said that police actually said, or that spokespeople said, it's not clear that there's a suspect in custody. They said that, and now it's not clear. So, I think the issue is there are no updates at all, and the police are not giving updates. Now, keep in mind, one thing that could be going on in terms of updates is when something like this happens, you have to be concerned that there's more than one guy. You have to be concerned that there could be two shooters, not just one. So that security has to be all over that place, first of all, right? That's why you don't just open it up. They've got to have security just in case. Second of all, you don't necessarily go public with the information because he may have an accomplice, and you don't want the accomplice to be getting information about what's going on. So that could be part of the reason they're not giving us any information. The other thing is this just happened, right? It's their priority is to tell his family how he's doing. Their priority is not to tell us how he's doing, because in a way it's none of our business, right? I mean, we all want to know because it's a big news story, but that shouldn't be their priority. Their priority is not to give us an update. Their priority is to make the area safe for all the people there and to make sure whoever's involved is caught and stopped. So we don't know. We don't know. Keep in mind that the two shooters who went after Donald Trump were Republicans. I want to be careful about this, obviously, everything we talk about today, because this is serious stuff and it's very bad stuff. But, the culture of political violence has existed a long time in our country. There's another mass shooting today. I was just saying, literally this afternoon, there was a mass shooting at a school in Colorado. I mean, this happens far too often in our country. There is a predilection, I think, towards embracing violence in politics by some people. That's very dangerous and very wrong. And it helps to create and feed a culture of violence, which is very bad. Currently, I'm planning on going live at 6. That's the plan. So normally I go live at 6 o'clock Eastern time, US. Today is obviously early because this was breaking news. So I didn't, wanted to obviously cover this. I'm looking at my TikTok too really quick here. Yeah, I mean, no news really. I just wanted to sort of come on and talk to you guys, but also talk about the fact of I do think this is dangerous in terms of, oops, that's TikTok playing music. All right, TikTok, stop. Not what we're looking for. All right, stop. Obviously, very dangerous stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's campus already closed and evacuated. Well, again, the concern is going to be, your first concern is going to be, is the shooter acting alone? You've got to close down the campus. You've got to swarm it with police, right? You've got to go through that entire campus to make sure it's safe. So yeah, they would have to close the campus, you would think, because that's the priority, is making sure all the other students and everybody else are safe, so yeah, I mean, this is, and again, in today's America, where we have so many mass shootings, where there's been so much sort of embrace of violence in our politics, I think, certainly violent language. Where, well, I mean, according to the witness, the reporter on CNN who witnessed the shooting, Charlie Kirk was discussing transgender mass shooters when he was shot. That the fact that that's even a topic that people want to have, accusing falsely transgender people of being mass shooters. Actually, that story, it's a horrible story. It's incredibly bigoted, but I just read TikTok's rules again yesterday, and the rules are okay about discussing bigotry as long as you oppose bigotry, and we definitely oppose bigotry, especially against trans people. But there's Trump himself has tried to make he has made a national story in the last week out of this notion that transgender people he called them, his Justice Department called them mentally ill, which is, again, horrific and wrong. But Trump wants to ban, the Justice Department is looking into banning all transgender people from owning guns because they claim falsely that trans people are mentally ill, which is, again, horrifically bigoted and wrong. Trump has made that a big issue. By the way, 0.11% of mass shooters are transgender. That, I looked up the data. 0.11% of all the mass shooters are transgender. And actually, trans people are probably more than 0.11% of the population, which would mean transgender people are actually less likely to be mass shooters than the rest of us, ironically. So that topic that Trump promoted, that is an incredibly bigoted topic and an incredibly scary bigotry, because whenever you have a government taking a class of citizens and saying that an entire class of Americans are mentally ill and don't deserve full constitutional rights, that is an incredibly dangerous and bigoted thing for a government to do. And it harkens to very scary periods of time in the world. So Charlie Kirk was discussing this bigoted theory that Donald Trump came up with, that transgender people are prone to be mass shooters when they're not. When he was shot, he literally was discussing that topic. So I will just leave that there. Anyway, very scary story. Very dangerous, obviously, for what it means for more political violence, what it means for Trump clamping down, because I think that's going to be a big concern now too. Now, this was in Utah, which is a Republican state, but you still run the risk of Trump looking at this and saying, right, we need more military everywhere to clamp down on this kind of stuff. Very scary stuff. Now, again, the previous shooters were Republicans. The two that shot Trump were Republicans. They can be any political party, but they were Republicans. So we don't know who this shooter was. A lot of the shooters, by the way, do end up being right-wing extremists. That's just the nature of who historically these shooters have tended to be. A lot of white supremacists. We've had a lot of the shootings at synagogues and places that have been white supremacists. The neo-Nazis, those kind of extreme right-wing, Just seeing the 4 o'clock update on CNN, but they're not saying anything. Right. They're showing some of the video. I'm not going to show you guys, but they're not going to show him being shot, which is fine. But oh, interesting. So okay. Didn't want to. Well, they didn't show it, but I didn't want to show anything because I don't want to go there, obviously. Anyway, very scary stuff. Very scary stuff. Yeah, AP is saying he's in critical condition, which is what was assumed. Witnesses say he was shot in the neck, which is very scary. He was injured. I mean, they could tell. Very scary. Anyway, very, very scary stuff. So, but don't be crazy, guys. Don't post hate. Hate, left or right wing hate doesn't matter. You're going to be muted because that's not cool. But yeah, but the thing is, since I cover politics, this is very dangerous for U.S. politics. This is very dangerous for U.S. politics because this just feeds more violence. It doesn't even matter. I mean, any of the violence either way, right? If the left thinks the right's doing it, if the right thinks the left's doing it, it potentially makes people want to seek revenge, and then there's more violence. And I was going to tell you, one of the things that happened in the and there's no update on yet, 1980s or so, there were a number of communist insurgencies going on in Latin America, Peru especially. Sendero Luminoso was the Shining Path guerrillas in Peru, Marxist. And one of the goals or one of the strategies or tactics or whatever of maybe it was a tactic, I guess, of Shining Path was they would use political violence because their goal, these are Marxist revolutionaries in Latin America. Their goal was to have political assassinations, blow up buses, kill civilians, whatever, because they wanted, these were Marxist guerrillas, they wanted to force the government to clamp down on them, right? And the idea of these Marxist guerrillas in the 1980s in Latin America was committing political violence in order to force the government to respond. The government would clamp down. The government would rescind civil liberties, right? Would send in the military in civilian capacity, right? And the idea of the Marxist revolutionaries was to do this to try to force a revolution in society. That the idea was they knew if they got violent enough, they would force the government to become violent in response, and it would cause the whole society to erupt. That's my fear with these kind of things, is not a Marxist revolution is not my fear, but that political violence runs the risk of inspiring bad politicians to become violent in response and to use violence as a political weapon themselves. And then things get even worse. It's bad on so many levels. It really is. And very dangerous, as I said, sort of culturally very dangerous as well. You know what I mean? It's in addition to just obviously being bad. I mean, that's obvious as well. But very scary stuff. I mean, I'm not going to speculate on his condition. There was a journalist on CNN that witnessed it, said he was shot in the neck and there was a lot of blood immediately. She said, that's very bad. If you think of Trump got like a flesh wound on his ear or whatever, right? And there was blood because you get blood in the face, but not described the way this is described. This is described as being a lot. That's very bad. Again, who knows? Who knows? I mean, that's why you shouldn't jump to conclusions. We don't know, but it's very bad, whatever it is. But we don't know. And I would say the fact that we're not getting an update on his condition tells you two things. One, either the family has not been informed yet of what his condition is, although at this point he's super famous. So you'd think the family would have been informed, but sometimes they don't give the condition publicly because the family's not been informed. And there are privacy, by the way, there's privacy issues here as well. If he's unconscious and being treated, he cannot give consent for them to talk about his health. This is an interesting medical ethics question. I wonder, I would think for them to talk about his condition publicly, the hospital, they would need consent from a family member, right? Because otherwise it's a medical privacy question. The hospital can't talk about your condition or my condition, right? So that's an issue right there, is you'd have to get a hold of his family. You'd have to get, and who's the appropriate family person to get permission from, right? He's an adult. He's 30 years old or something. He's an adult. His mom and dad aren't necessarily the right people to go to, right? So that would be part of is he married? Okay. If he's married, then it would be the wife. Yeah, it would be the wife. Because you can't just give updates on his condition without the family. And by the way, it's possible they asked his wife, and his wife said, I'm really not in the mood for this right now. You know what I mean? I want to worry about my husband. I don't care about telling the public how he's doing. That's possible too. And that would be understandable. You know, we are talking about Charlie Kirk, who is a top Maga activist who was shot today, giving a speech or a discussion in Utah, maybe an hour ago, or so ago. Very bad. Shot and hit very bad. But his condition is unknown. But again, very bad stuff. I want to sort of see about pulling up the video myself, but I don't know if, where is this? No, I don't even know that I have it. I don't know that I do have it. Hold on. Seconds before he's shot, Kirk is heard on video answering a question about transgender mass shooters in America. Trump is calling for prayers. Charlie Kirk, conservative activist, MAGA activist, one of Donald Trump's biggest and most important supporters, young. Seconds before, okay, I'm going to read the dialogue here. This is the dialogue Kirk was having with an audience member right when he was shot. Now, again, I'm always careful with this because I do LGBT civil rights, actually. I have for decades. And you always want to be careful that you're not promoting bad stuff. But they were having a discussion about transgender people that is very bigoted. I'm just looking at it right now. But I read TikTok's rules last night, and they did say it was okay to talk about bigotry when you are opposed to bigotry and exposing bigotry. So I'm going to read you this dialogue because obviously I don't agree with this dialogue. So this is what Charlie Kirk was discussing with an audience member right when he was shot. This is from CNN. Audience member, do you know how many transgender Americans have been mass shooters over the last 10 years? I'm going to tell you the number. I Googled this. Might be 5 or 6, like total that we know of. Might be 5 or 6. The estimate is 0.11% only of mass shooters in America have been transgender. It might be 3. Ayla is saying 3. It might also be 5 or 6. It's small. The number is 0.11% of the shooters have been transgender. That's nothing. So an audience member, do you know how many transgender Americans have been mass shooters over the last 10 years? Kirk responds with a lie. Too many. That's a lie. 0.11%, according to CNN, have been transgender of the mass shooters only. Kirk says too many. Same audience member went on to say the number is 5. Oh, that's interesting. And proceeded to ask if Kirk knows how many mass shooters there have been in America over the last 10 years. Kirk says, counting or not counting gang violence. Second later, the sound of a pop is heard and the crowd screams as Kirk gets shot and recoils in his seat. So that's what happened. But yes, unfortunately, they were having a bigoted discussion about transgender people, which is bad. And lying, because it's important to correct the record on civil rights issues. there are, as that person said, I heard 5 or 6 transgender mass shooters in the history of America. America has mass shooters almost every day. Unfortunately, we had another one today at a school in Colorado. The number cited on CNN was 0.11% of all mass shooters are transgender. Only 0.11. It is estimated trans people could be 0.5%, maybe 1%, maybe even more of the population. If that's the case, this would mean transgender people are 5 times less likely or 10 times less likely to be mass shooters, right? There are fewer shooters in the transgender community than they are represented in the population, meaning they're less likely to be shooters. Okay. In any case, very scary stuff, guys. But yeah, they were having an unfortunately bigoted conversation about trans people when the shooting happened. So, man. Anyway. Yeah, I would not trust something on Instagram. I would only trust a main media outlet. By the way, as an aside, there was a rumor going around last night about TikTok's community guidelines, and people were saying, oh my God, they're going to ban politics. And then I saw some woman talking about it. I got a copy of TikTok's new community guidelines. I read it last night. They're fine. They're absolutely fine. There's nothing in them about banning politics. There's nothing in them about, I don't want to go, we'll talk about this tonight. There was nothing wrong with their community guidelines. Everything I read in the community guidelines from TikTok was totally acceptable and totally understandable. So don't believe stuff you hear online. CNN should be the first news source you trust, absolutely positively. Yes. Yep. They're one of the only news sources you should trust. I would trust ABC, NBC, CBS, Washington Post, New York Times. All of them are great, proven, unbiased news sources. But CNN, for starters, totally trustworthy. And I wouldn't even listen to anybody who would tell you CNN isn't trustworthy. Clearly, they're trustworthy. CNN's for educated people. And, you know, I happen to like education and intelligence, so they're good. AP is excellent as well. Yep. This is a bias-free show. We don't, on my show, we talk about the truth. We don't play games. I'm not going to lie to you because it makes you feel good. People who watch my show know that they get kind of pissed at me sometimes because I'm not going to lie to you. And when it comes to like knocking the media, CNN's one of the best news outlets out there. I know people want you to think otherwise because they've got their own agenda and they're going to lie to you about it. I'm not going to lie to you. It's going to upset you, but you know what? The truth doesn't really care about your feelings, as they say. It's either true or it's not. CNN either is or isn't a good news source. It doesn't matter if it bothers you. They are, in fact, a good news source. Now, what bothers people, some people, is that CNN tells the truth a little too often about things like Donald Trump, and that scares people. But, you know, a man arrested, not the shooter, Annie is saying. Okay, that's interesting. Well, that was a discussion we were having. Was remember I said one, if that's true, let me pull this up. One news source said that the man in custody was not necessarily, it was not clear the shooter was in custody, was one news source I read. Let me see here. Okay, AP is saying he's in critical condition at a Utah hospital. A single shot rings out and Kirk can be seen reaching up with his right hand as a large volume of blood gushes from the left side of his neck. Jesus. Stunned spectators are heard gasping and screaming. People run away. Trying to see. The shooting comes amid a spike in political violence in the United States across all parts of the ideological spectrum. The attacks include the assassination of a Minnesota state lawmaker and her husband at their house in June. Those were Democrats, by the way. The firebombing of a Colorado parade to demand Hamas release hostages, and a fire set at the house of Pennsylvania's Democratic governor, who is Jewish, in April. The most notorious of these events is the shooting of Trump during a campaign rally last year. And as I reminded you guys, the shooter, the guy who shot Trump, was a Republican, registered Republican. Yeah, nothing here on the shooter yet, though. No, I don't know that they've got him. I don't know. Pull up CNN again. Again, what happened? Charlie Kirk, a top Trump supporter, young, 30 something, but one of Trump's top biggest supporters, was shot at a speech in Utah about an hour ago, maybe, and is in critical condition, very bad. Um, 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 yeah, another this or is this? Oh, this is the same reporters. The reporters from the Deseret News who were on CNN. One of them was on CNN. Described the scene just minutes into Kirk talking. Deseret News is a big Utah news outlet forever. Reporters for Deseret News described the scene of the shooting just minutes into Kirk talking. Pitts, the reporter, said they heard a gunshot, and then you see Charlie go limp. He told CNN his neck kind of turned, and we saw blood immediately. It felt like so much blood came out of his neck immediately, Pitts added. Yeah, very scary stuff. Yeah, nothing. There have been dozens of shootings at schools in the U.S. this year. The 46th shooting that took place at a school in the U.S. so far this year, 46. That would be 2 a week, almost 2 a week. I'm trying to think what month we are, or what week. Let's say 4 times 8, 32. Yeah, that would be 1.5 shootings a week. 24 were on college campuses. 22 were on kindergarten through 12th school grounds. The incidents left 18 people dead, at least 76 other victims injured. And as I said, there was another school shooting today in Colorado. Unfortunately, this happens all the time. Charlie Kirk credited with mobilizing the youth vote for Trump in 2024. He is a large reason responsible for why we have Trump in power today. Very important Trump supporter. Universities. So 45 minutes ago, the university said a suspect is in custody. A suspect is in custody. That doesn't mean he's the shooter, of course. After Kirk was shot. Yeah, so that's part of the issue is suspects in custody, but still possible that, did they get the right guy? Maybe. It depends. A lot of people witnessed it, so you'd think, right? You'd think, yeah, let's not repeat names because we don't know, The last thing we should be doing is repeating a name that somebody in the audience gave for somebody in the crowd. That would be very bad. Because who knows? Who knows, right? New York Times is saying what exactly, Robert? We're in week 37, Michaela. Thank you. So we're week 37 and we've had 42 school shootings already. And as I said, there's another school shooting today. Did he say that? Hold on. Hang on. Let me see here. I want to see if this is true. I didn't see the actual quote, though. Hold on. Let me go to ChatGPT. Oops. ChatGPT. Give me the exact entire quote he made. Oops. Oh, he's talking about the guy in custody. University, Charlie Kirk shooting suspect not in custody. There you go. This is, so that, do you remember? See, by the way, this is what I was telling you guys about how you've got to be careful. Not you. We've got to be careful with news. Remember I told you one news source said there's conflicting information about whether or not they have a shooter in custody. What they're now saying on CNN is they did put a man in custody and they realized he's the wrong guy. The shooter is not in custody, which is very scary because it means the shooter is free and dangerous, of course. So this was the Charlie Kirk quote you guys were talking about, 2023, talking about mass shootings. You will never live in a society when you have an armed citizenry and you won't have a single gun death. That is nonsense. It's drivel. But I think it's worth it. I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. That is a prudent deal. It is rational. Nobody talks like this. They live in a complete alternate universe. Okay, well, that was Charlie Kirk talking about mass shootings in America, saying that it is worth to have a cost. I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. Okay, well, I don't agree. What else we got here? There's no other news. So that's the big breaking news, is the shooter is not in custody. Very interesting. Very interesting. He is in critical condition. They are not giving updates on his status. The witnesses from the local media that were there say he was in fact shot in the neck. There was an immediate large amount of blood immediately. So, not good. So, not good. But the condition, they're not giving condition updates, which suggest, these two possibilities, as I talked about. Not giving condition updates. Not giving condition updates is a couple different things. One, the family has to give permission. His wife has to give permission if he's not conscious. They can't just say publicly his condition. That's a privacy violation, medical privacy in the US. So the wife would have to give permission. His wife is clearly preoccupied right now, worrying about her husband. And the wife may not have given, she may have said, I don't want you talking publicly about how he's doing, right? So that's the first thing. Second of all, he could very easily be in surgery right now, obviously, and that could go for hours. That could be another reason you're not getting updates, right? We don't know. But again, there are medical privacy issues, laws in America. His wife would have to okay it. Now, the only question I've got is, I don't know how privacy issue works for somebody who has died. Hang on a second here. How does medical privacy work once you've died? Can a hospital release your condition publicly? That's an interesting question. I'm not convinced they apply. ChatGPT says medical privacy rules do not automatically disappear the moment you die, but they do change. Here, how it works under HIPAA. Under HIPAA, the health insurance law, a person's protected health information remains confidential for 50 years after their death. I didn't know that. That means hospitals, doctors, and others cannot publicly disclose details of your medical records, conditions, or treatment, even after you've passed. Who can act? The executor of the estate has the same rights to the deceased person's records as the patient would have had. Did not know that. Family members may also gain limited access if it relates to their own health. Oh, that's interesting too. Wow. Okay. Permitted disclosures. Hospitals may release certain information without authorization. Directory information, basic facts like name, location of the facility, general condition, but typically only while the patient is alive. After death, many hospitals stop even this. They may confirm a death occurred, often limited to date and time, but not usually the medical condition or cause. Hang on. I'm going to ask it specifically. How about... what medical privacy laws apply to, saying like, what would the medical privacy issue be if he were to die? Could the hospital release that information or not? Yeah, Trevor, you are so going away. Seriously, I'm sorry, but you're trying to promote a rap live in the middle of somebody getting shot and possibly dying. Could you read the crowd more incorrectly? If someone dies in a mass shooting, the first confirmation of the public normally comes not from the hospital, but from law enforcement or the medical examiner. Hospitals generally will not issue a statement naming victims or describing their conditions without family notification first. HIPAA still applies even in high-profile cases. A hospital may confirm that a patient is being treated, that they can state a general condition. Oh, and they can state a general condition, critical, stable, or deceased. Oh, but naming the patient and describing their injuries requires authorization from the patient. Or next of kin. Okay. If he were taken to a hospital, the hospital could say something like, we received multiple patients, but not confirmed names. In a homicide, the coroner or medical examiner is responsible for certifying the cause of death. They, not the hospital, usually release the information publicly. Okay. So it would be the authorities. Even if the victim's a public figure, the privacy rules don't change. Hospital can't bypass. Okay. So it would be law enforcement that would make the decision if somebody were to die. Okay. All right. I think I'm going to take a break, guys, because we've got my show at 6. There's no news right now. Also, I've got to eat dinner because I'm famished right now. I want to go eat or eat something. But and the dog's got to be fed as well. But let's check back in a bit. If there's like news, I'll come back on anyway. But otherwise, my show is at 6 o'clock Eastern time. That's a year and a half from now. So we'll be talking about this big time tonight. This will be the big news. We're also going to talk about Russia's little mini invasion of Poland that was very scary overnight. But I think this will be our big topic. So I'll be back at 6 o'clock, hour and a half. Did I say year and a half? An hour, not a year and a half. No, just an hour and a half. So we are going to keep talking about it, and anybody like C or people who want to come here and troll, you're not welcome, because these are serious topics for serious people and serious adults, and we're not playing games, left or right games with somebody's life, because that's really inappropriate. So, all right, I will talk to you guys later. I'll be back at 6 o'clock. We'll do our Discord at that point, and earlier, possibly, if there's news. All right, see you, YouTube. See you, TikTok.